Welcome to a unique episode of Locker Talk Austin San Antonio. We'll tell you why it's unique here at the end of the show. But as always, I'm Wac, that's Thomas, and man, do we got some good stuff to get to today. NFL draft, some UFC news, some NBA news that just dropped just about a couple of hours ago. And we got just tons of stuff to talk about. But before we do that, I got to bring in Thomas. Thomas, how you doing today?
Doing pretty well. Like you said, it is a unusual type of program for us, but hopefully, what we're going to do today is going to really, continue our legacy for a long time to come.
Yeah, I'm just going to leave it at that for now because I want us to get to all this sports news. But of course, before the sports news, we got to talk highs of the week. What is yours, Thomas?
My high of the week is the fact that I actually did a video interview for the first time in over a month. Big thanks to Hutto athletic director and head football coach Bradley Plant for spending about 30 minutes with me. It ended up being about a 25-minute video interview. Always is a great interview. He is. We just talked about, obviously the coronavirus, how he's handling that, how he and his family are doing, how he's, obviously continuing to push his athletic, athletes and, all the coaches at Hutto, in terms of just, staying on track because, they're making that jump to 6A for the next time that there is high school football in this state. Hopefully it's later on this year, but, if it ends up being 2021, obviously that will be where they will end up. So, we talked about the planning, hiring on a big time assistant a couple weeks back, how that's how that's helping with that particular preparation and planning. And also he tells a really unique story about when he first came to Hutto years back as one of Hutto's coaches and kind of his introduction to the whole hippo scene. So it definitely is worth your time to check out that interview. That'll be out later this week on VYPE site. So definitely thank you to him for spending so much time with me. Like I said, he's always a great interview, and obviously big thanks to the two Joshes at VYPE for helping me do the interview virtually over Zoom. Obviously, I want to make sure that everything was cleared up before I went into something I had never done before, and a big thanks to both of them because they were obviously big helps.
Well, we do what we can, and excited to listen to it when it comes out. My high of the week is entertainment related, and I don't know if you've heard of the show Parks and Rec. Thomas, have you?
I'm a big fan of that show.
Well, I don't know if you've heard this news, Thomas, but it's coming back for one episode on the 30th. They're doing a little special. I guess they're kind of going to be all in their homes, but it's gonna be Parks and Rec. All the cast is back, and it's going to be like a little special episode. Yeah,
I'm excited. I mean, it actually falls my birthday this year, so it adds on to my birthday celebration with really not a lot going on this year. So I'm definitely looking forward to tuning in.
I know. I saw the news drop last week, and man, let me tell you, I was jumping out of my seat, man. That's some good news to have during this time.
Absolutely, it's good. It's gonna be really unique. I'm interested to see how they're gonna pull it off.
Yeah, I mean, I just can't wait for it. And was it Thursday? Can't come quick enough. Like I said, during these times, a little ray of light to shine through, and Parks and Rec is that light right there. But we got to move on to some sports coverage, and unless you've been under a rock, even in quarantine, you've had some sports news, and the biggest one, of course, is the NFL draft happened Thursday through Saturday. We're going to specifically talk Cowboys and Texans and how they did. Thomas, before I give you my opinions on how each team did, how do you think each team did? Let's start with the Texans. How do you think the Texans did?
They did okay. I mean, I thought their first pick, Blacklock out of TCU, was pretty good. But, they waited till their last pick to pick a receiver, and that was obviously something that they needed to fill going into this draft, and especially with everything that happened to them this offseason, losing Hopkins, and they really have not found a great replacement for him yet at that position. So I'm surprised that they waited so long to get a receiver. Obviously, they had chances. I know I texted you after the first, I think it may have been Thursday night, once the Cowboys drafted, receiver with their first ever pick, that maybe the Texans go after a Duvernay out of Texas, and obviously he ended up getting drafted, obviously not to the Texans, but he was a guy that I thought might be able to be a good fit at that position for the team. But like I said, I thought they did okay, not great, but I think we've seen that probably another year, maybe two max, with Bill O'Brien at the helm will probably start a new tenure for this franchise after he's left.
Yeah, it was a little surprising. I think their draft was pretty average overall, especially when you look at their biggest need when you get rid of DeAndre Hopkins, obviously, is a wide receiver. And like you said, they didn't take one until the fifth round. And this draft was really wide receiver, abundant. And they had plenty of opportunities to probably get some really good ones that they may have missed out on. Like you were saying, Duvernay went in the third round to the Ravens, just a whole bunch of others. It just, I think, slipped through their cracks. And so it was really, I follow a couple of Houston Texans fans, and a lot of them were just scratching their head like, hey, what are you doing, Bill O'Brien? Like, come on, man. So very average. We'll see how it plays out. I mean, this was a playoff team last year. Outside of the loss of Hopkins, they're still bringing back some talent. So, it will be, and I think they did just pick up their fifth-year option on
Deshaun Watson.
There it is. Lots of sports news, and sometimes things just slip through my head, Thomas. But yeah, so they picked up the fifth year of Deshaun Watson. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, he's a good quarterback, and it'll be interesting to see who he ends up being able to throw to this season.
How about the Cowboys, Thomas? How do you think they did?
I thought they did pretty well. I mean, they had a lot of choices. Obviously they ended up going CeeDee Lamb out of Oklahoma with their first round pick. Obviously, I don't have any criticism on that. Very good player, explosive athlete at OU, and they picked up another OU guy with their third pick, and even the guy down the line that they got from Utah. He comes from a very athletic family line. And and then they got a guy from Alabama, Trayvon Diggs, for the secondary need. So, I thought they did pretty well, especially with their first couple picks.
Yeah. Now look, I may be a little biased. I'm a Cowboys fan. Everyone knows this, but I think they absolutely blew this draft out of the water. They never reached. They never reached on a pick. Now some people are going to say, "Why'd you get CeeDee Lamb? When you need some defense and." But I mean, probably arguably the top wide receiver in the draft falls to 17. You take the best available player in this case, and that's what the Cowboys did. And now their offense is just looking stacked. You got Lamb, Gallup, Cooper, Zeke, even Blake Jarwin. I mean, it shows some flashes at times. And with Dak throwing the ball, their offense is going to look great. Now, you can say, okay, well, their defense, yes, they've lost a lot of defense, but then you look here in the draft, they got Diggs, who many thought would go in the 30s or 40s at most, fell to 51 to him. They got Neville Gallimore from Oklahoma. Some people were saying he's a kind of a top 30 pick. Reggie Robinson from Tulsa, who people are saying, even McCarthy are saying, this guy, he's got something special. And then, like you said, for the guy from Utah, I'm sorry if I mispronounced the name, but I think, he's a little rough around the edges, but if he can get in there, get trained up right, I think this is an absolute steal for the Cowboys as well. I mean, really, the only pick you can really scratch your head on is DiNucci, but they really wanted him, and they know that the Raiders and the Bears are going to go after him in the undrafted free agency, so why not use a seventh-round pick to get him? Cowboys absolutely killed this draft, and I think they're going to be set up well going into the season whenever it starts.
Yeah, it's going to be really fun to see this offense in motion throughout the 2020 campaign.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited about it, as you can tell from my talk, and definitely one of the better drafts I've seen from the Cowboys in a while, and maybe Jerry needs to do all of his drafts from that yacht. Moving on, let's talk some UFC. Dana White announced on Friday that they're going to start hosting events again in May. Do you personally feel it's the right move, especially after the NFL draft on this past week?
I think it is. I mean, you're starting to see a lot of the southern states reopen. Florida is one of those states like Texas where it wasn't hit as hard so far by the coronavirus. So I know they're starting to open up sporting events and businesses and stuff like that. And I think with how successful the NFL draft was, it really shows that we can start getting back to normal, at least one step at a time. And I think I know their plan, the UFC's is to obviously not have fans early on, and I think it's great that they have a couple events scheduled for May. And I'm not the biggest UFC fan. I'm not really into that, but maybe something that I tune into. Obviously, I know the viewership numbers for the NFL draft this past weekend were phenomenal, and obviously a big part of that was just nothing else was on, and we've been missing sports for a couple weeks now, if not longer than that. So I definitely expect it to be a success, and especially with states letting certain situations and certain entertainments return in the coming weeks. I definitely expect it to kind of start kind of a trend of other sports leagues, slowly getting back to their normal form.
Yeah, it does seem like it's going to start a trend. I don't necessarily agree with it for the most part. I understand NFL had all these ratings and whatever, but you understand that was all remote. There was no really sport action, if you will. It was the draft. This is going to be a little more. It's going to be a little more logistics involved, and I don't know if it's the right time yet. Might as well bring this up. The NBA today announced that they're going to start allowing teams to start using the facilities if if their state is no longer on a stay-at-home order, starting May 8th. So Texas today announced that, hey, May 1st we're gonna start lifting the stay-at-home order. So the Spurs and Mavs would be able to, and there's a lot of, if you go and read some of this stuff about the NBA. They're not going to be testing everyone for COVID every time. If they say that's not possible, they're going to be making players and people at the facility wear face masks. Players, when they're not practicing, have to wear their face mask at all times. So they are putting in some type of rules in place to try and protect them. But I think this may be a little too soon. Just because we're starting to get to that point of getting open, you don't want to rush it back. I think we talked earlier in a few episodes ago about what we feel will be the first one back, and I said golf, and I still think that's probably the right one. Like, if you want a sport to come back, that's the one, because that's the one you can kind of still use social distancing and still have competitiveness, if you will. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. You have any more thoughts on it, Thomas?
Like I said, I'm okay if these athletes are able, especially with those NBA individual practices, if they're able to do it, either they set aside parts of the day for one athlete and another athlete can use it at a different time, or they're on different sides of the court or facility. I think if they do it safely, I really hope that it continues to start kind of giving everybody an opportunity to start enjoying sports again. And I know, obviously, just having individual practices is still light years away from actually having like an NBA game, for instance, even without fans. But I definitely like the steps, and I'm excited to start seeing things on, hopefully, television over the next couple of weeks or month or so.
Do you think the NBA is making a mistake by coming back potentially too soon by saying, hey, May 8th, if your states aren't on lockdown anymore, you can use the facilities?
I don't think it's a mistake. Like I said, if you do it where the athletes are far enough apart, either from their trainers or coaches or even their teammates, I think you're able to still make it a reasonable situation. So yeah, I don't really feel like it's a mistake. I like that I'm starting to see businesses, or obviously some of these sports or teams, get back to at least somewhat of a normal schedule.
I will say this, it may be a little wrong to say, but at least some of these sports are going to be kind of a guinea pig slash barometer to know if we're going to have sports in the fall. Depending on how well these go, will really kind of determine what the fall is going to look like for us. So I guess if you look on it that way, I guess it's there is some good as far as that goes, because now you can see kind of how this will all play out.
No, absolutely. And I think, if you start, like, for instance, if, those states that, are starting to open things up that, give some of these NBA players an opportunity to train at their NBA facilities, if those teams and those states that have those teams, if, a month from now, no one has gotten sick, you might start seeing, further opportunities down the line for either those teams in 2020, whether it's like, maybe you have, groups of players in the same room if they haven't already been that. I mean, I'm interested to see how everything goes. Like you said, it will be an experiment, especially for, the UFC, in terms of competing, obviously the NBA with some of these individual practices. So I'm really interested to see how everything goes really between now, I would say mid-June.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out, and I mean, maybe we get sports back, and hopefully that's a good sign of things to come. Before we move on to our little announcement here, I know you said you wanted to kind of go over some of the notable alumni that got drafted this weekend, so I'll give you the floor to kind of tell us some of those names.
Yeah, there were a couple Austin, San Antonio area players that got drafted who obviously previously competed at local high schools. One of them was James Lynch, who actually competed at Round Rock High School and then ended up playing at Baylor University. You also had Alton Robinson, who played at Converse Judson, and then obviously the star from this area, J.K. Dobbins. I mean, he was phenomenal, not only at LaGrange. I remember covering him in college. I remember obviously seeing him on television when he played at Ohio State, and there was a reason why he was a second-round pick. It was really cool to have a couple guys from our coverage area get drafted, and obviously good luck to all of them.
Yeah, definitely. I always love to see when Texas dominates the draft, and we got some from our area, which is always great as well. We mentioned at the start of the show that this was a unique episode, and I know we both have words for it, but Thomas, I'll kind of let you be the one to tell the audience why the show is going to be unique for us.
Yeah, so obviously out of our control, this will be, we're taking a break. And, we all know what's going on right now, with the coronavirus, and, it is affecting sports predominantly, and it will make this show have a break for at least a period of time. We're definitely hoping to get back sooner than later, but obviously before we kind of sign off today, like you said, both you and I have some words that we want to say to the audience today, and really I want to start out by saying thank you to everyone who has been involved with this program. Obviously Josh and I have done so much over the past year together. Obviously Evan Byer as well, in terms of just growing this thing. Last school year, this current show's predecessor, the VYPE Hill Country Show, Evan and I were doing a lot as well, and y'all really have given us a chance, in this coverage area, and these two shows, in my opinion, have dramatically enhanced the coverage that myself and the company of VYPE have been able to provide to y'all over the last 2 school years. For people who don't know, I was sent over here, or I was told about me actually taking over this position about 2 years ago this week. And it was something I was excited about. I grew up in Southeast Texas, but went to college over here. I've always had a lot of family over here. And for someone like myself, who's always considered this area to be my second home, y'all have obviously welcomed me back. And I'm so thankful for everything that we've done between these 2 shows, whether it's, just having the show, whether it's just, all the great conversations that we've had, whether it's the interviews that we've had, the people that have been involved with the interviews, whether it was me doing them, whether it was Evan, whether it was an intern, whether it was somebody else, and then obviously big thanks to, the coaches and athletes and ADs that not only were a part of those, but have, promoted this show, have shared it, have engaged with it. Big thanks to, all the audiences for just tuning in every week. And it's definitely been a highlight of my week. Every week that we've done this has really been a great part of my last 2 years. And, just like I said, big thanks to everybody. I've definitely enjoyed everything that we've done, everything that we've covered, all the games I've been to, all the great, communities that I've visited. And like I said, we hope to be back sooner than later, but just had a couple things I wanted to say today. And like I said, big thanks to everyone that was a part of this. Big thanks to all the guys at the upper heads at VYPE for allowing us to do these shows. And like I said, it's just been a true joy for myself, and from what both Wac and Evan have told me as well, they felt the same way. So thank you so much for tuning in each week and continuing to grow our coverage in this part of the state.
Yeah, like you said, definitely out of our control. Not something we had planned on doing. And then we got the word on it. So, like Thomas said, just a big thank you to everyone that's tuned in and listened, whether it's one show or all, 30 being 34 now. So thank you so much. Thomas, to you, I say thank you. When I came with this crazy idea of, hey, let's do this show on a weekly basis, and you just jumped at the opportunity. You're like, heck yeah, let's do it. And, Evan, we've already thanked him plenty, but I mean, he was such a great addition because y'all had that rapport already to get the show off and up and running. But like I said, big thanks to you and always coming through, getting us ready every week. And, with just your knowledge, your vast high school, not even just high school knowledge, but sports knowledge in general. It's always been great. And so, just from the bottom of our hearts, thank you so much. And then, like you said, thank you to the people at VYPE who gave us this opportunity. It's not like we're some big name stars to put in front of the camera, but they said, hey, you know what? Y'all have the passion for it. Go and do it, and let's do it. And they've supported us every step of the way. So thanks to them as well. Thomas, any last words before we go?
Obviously, appreciate the words you just said about me. I definitely, obviously, am very thankful for you teaching me a lot. Especially with all these virtual, but also all the trips I would take, the camera and the the tripod to get all this content done. And you've been a great influence in my career, especially over the last year. And obviously, you had the idea to turn our audio show into a video show, and I've been very thankful for that. So. Not only am I thankful for the audience and Evan, but obviously big thanks to you as well for not only teaching me a lot, but kind of showing me kind of new side of show production.
Well, hey, I appreciate the kind words, and hopefully sooner rather than later we're back up and running and even better than before. But for the last time, for now, Thomas, where can people find you if they want to get a hold of you?
Yeah, you can follow me on social media at TexNation on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Also follow the local Twitter accounts for VYPE, VYPE ATX, VYPE SATX. And obviously you can follow VYPE on Instagram and Facebook at VYPE Texas. And like always, don't forget to sign up for VYPE Campus, get extra coverage for your school and school district.
And you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at JoshuaC13. But as always, please follow the VYPEU program on Twitter. That's VYPEU_A. On Instagram, that's VYPEU. Or go to VYPEU.com and hit that apply button if you're a student interested in a career in sports media. We're always here to help. But for now, for the last time for a month or two or however long until we come back, I'm Wac. That's Thomas. This has been Locker Talk Austin San Antonio. Hopefully we see you soon, guys.
Okay, guys.